Your analogy of the forests and apply it to the reality of our food systems. Right? So we thought, hey, how about this? How about we actually clear all the land and turn it all into crops, monocrops, by the way.
Yep.
And then we deploy incredible amounts of embodied energy in the form of mostly chemistry to control and maintain and administer crop yield. And we'll spike calories and win, right?
Yep.
Which in 1930 seemed like a really great idea. And by 1969, we're like, wow, we fucking killed it. Let's export this to everybody on the planet.
Yep.
And in 2024 with Maha, there's a little bit of an awareness of like, man, maybe that actually was a terrible idea.
Right. Right.
And there's actually an enormous amount of rewinding and rejiggering we're going to have to do to be able to think, okay, what is actual food? What does it mean? What does it mean to actually create a food system that is really going to work holistically? And this is the key, holistically, because for the life of the world, it's so good, right? You know, when Christ says the the bread is my flesh, the bread is the whole cosmos. And the bread is the wheat is the soil and the rain, right? It's the whole
That's good.
cosmos
Yeah.
manifesting in a way that meets you as a human in a way that is giving you exactly what is proper and needful for you. And that's
And not even just manifesting, but with your hands involved, because
it,
you have to make the
in
bread, which is
partnership,
the
right?
most offensive part.
It's the best. It's like you're in direct collaboration. The farmer plants the seeds. He has a role to play. He does
Yeah.
not grow the wheat. The wheat grows.
Yeah.
God grows the
He
wheat.
has to go to sleep. That's what
He
the
has to
kingdom
go
of
to
heaven
sleep,
is
right?
like.
So it's
Yeah.
we're going to be forced holistically. This is good and bad. We've had this conversation. We are in a crisis. The collapse of modernity, the end of modernity, is a crisis. It is a crisis across every aspect of life. It's a crisis at the level of food. It's a crisis at the level of demographics, right? Nobody's having babies anymore.
Yeah.
And not having babies is a terminal illness. If you don't have babies, then everybody who's caught by that illness is extinguished in their generation, and that's the end of that.
Yeah.
Um, we nothing about the way that we live, our ontological design, like end of suburbs, fill in the blank, is vaguely A, sustainable, or B, participates in the actual thrivability of humans, which is to say, has nothing to do with communion. And so everything's wrong, and therefore everything's in crisis. This is the meta crisis. And therefore, by the way, we're at the end of being able to kick the can down the road. We simply have to begin the process of rebooting, which means that
Yes.
we can and must take everything into account. So now we're able to say, hey, wait a minute. This is a universal liturgy. Everything is liturgical by necessity, actually, because we can't answer the question. How are we
Yeah.
supposed to do
Yeah.
this? No fucking idea. We're sure that everything that we would use to answer that question is at least meaningfully wrong, possibly fully corrupt. Okay, great. What does that mean? We're going to have to participate with God. Look, we are weirdly enough, we are literally Israel in the desert without water or food.
I would
We think
agree
we've got water
completely.
and food. We think we got plenty of water and food, but we are in fact not. We're
Yep.
maybe just crossing the Red Sea, not thinking about the lack of our supplies.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
who we are. So we're going to
Yep.
have to pray for manna. And we're going to have to pray for water. And
Except for the people that are still living it up in Egypt right now. They're not even in the wilderness yet. So they're even
yeah,
they're even a full step behind.
there's a whole step behind. That's right. Yeah, yeah. The people in spiritual Babylon. Well, I mean, you could just speak. The Old Testament is very clear on what happens there. So,
Yeah.
so this is like
So
the pill is strong. Like it's important. We can say, hey, we're not dealing with a micro problem. This is actually not really a problem of mega church doesn't work.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's actually a tremendously gigantic problem of which mega church doesn't work is sort of the last gasp of modernity.
Right.
And we now are in a process of having to reboot something all the way down to the most basic level, which is oddly enough, exactly the story that Christ has given us continuously, which is
Hmm.
you are always of necessity completely dependent on me.
Mhm.
The only thing that is different is when you acknowledge and accept and enter into that or try to pretend it's not true. and you can get
Yeah,
away with
yeah,
trying to pretend it's not true for a while. Um, and you'll just continue to cycle through that process. But at a certain point, and of course, we have these experiences in micro level. Certainly, I have. We talked about this at house church last night. And it's like, um, I actually, my experience, I'll sort of sprint through moments of trying to manage my life through my own understanding, and then hit a certain wall. And that wall might be like my wife almost dying in childbirth. I'm like, whoa, like the experience of being blown out of that illusion,
yeah,
realizing the degree to which I have no control over the things that actually matter, and the degree to which the only way of being in relationship with reality is to acknowledge, accept, and embrace my utter dependence on him,
yeah.
and then just be there and see what happens next. And then, of course, that moment passes, and then I step backwards into my adolescent fantasy of self management, and then sprint forward on some idiotic journey. But again, we will fail. We're Israel. Like we're the generation. We're probably, sadly, let's hope that our parents were the generation who balked at going into the promised land because they saw a couple giants. Let's hope that was them, not us.
But
We're
it could
we're
be us.
it could be us. And in very well, how do I say it? We're very very easily primed to make the same kind of error. Um, and by the way, of course, the generation that was traveling through the desert, which is definitely us, uh, made plenty of their own mistakes.
Yeah,
That was not a one time issue.
yeah,
So maybe we're the generation that's going to have to be bit by snakes. Maybe that's us. Um, and our children is going to end up fighting with the Amalekites and having to sit on the back end of the Jordan, and then Joshua will make a commitment, and then our grandchildren will actually be the ones, and maybe that's how it works, right?
yeah,
Um, but it doesn't matter. The beautiful part is none of that matters. That's all irrelevant
yeah.
in the big picture. The big picture is there's exactly one thing we have to make the level of, oh God, I hate saying this. Ugh, the heaviness of the reality of what I'm saying is so intense that I balk at the fact that I will fail so brutally in doing what I'm saying must be done, and yet what do you know? Um, we have to reconnect to that participatory ontology. We have to be able to cleanse the various things that separate us from that. We have to reconstitute the underlying substrate of what is necessary at the level of the whole of life, living life liturgically in a absolutely uncompromisingly holistic sense, right? Nothing
Yes,
is outside of the sacred. We must reconstitute. So I took a note. Community, place, church. These are irreducible.
yes,
Any notion of church that is separate from place, meaning you live in the same place that is governed by your church, and community, you have actual existential life relationships, deep investments with the people who you live with and you go to church with, is a sine qua non. Right? There's no other way.
yes,
Um, okay, great. That's a kind of a design constraint that might be meaningfully addressable in this generation. It can't be successfully addressed in this generation because the headwinds are high.
yeah,
Like you said, college. As soon as you flag college, what you're saying is decontextualize young people, alienate them from their local
exactly.
community, embed them in a secular elite, and discombobulate them for 4 years in a maximally shiny way. Like, huh, that sounds like a recipe for disaster. Indeed, indeed, it
Indeed.
is. Um,
My daughter's a year and a half from that, traditional moment when that
Yeah.
begins.
I mean, both of my daughters are now finished, more or less. My oldest is in her senior year, but she's going in the direction of grad school in Scotland, which has some advantages. Like I actually feel like the thing she's pursuing, and classical, by the way. She's doing classical archaeology. She'll be doing archaeology between 500 BC, 500 AD in largely
Nice.
the Mediterranean.
Yeah,
She's already going to be quite skilled in Greek. She's fluent in French. Um, my guess is she'll also become fluent in Latin. It's like, okay, that's at some level, from a domain perspective, really neat. But the problem, of
yeah,
course, is
really
that
neat.
that's highly decontextualized. She will have
Right.
effectively no relationship with anybody who's in her family. We'll probably see her at the most for a few days a year for the rest of our lives, which is
Mm.
horror. Right? That's horror. That,
Yeah,
that should be understood as that it was one of the most horrible things imaginable. I mean, that's just a logical consequence of what happens when you get sucked into that rule of life, right, when that's where
Yes.
you are.
Yes.
My other daughter is stuck right now because she has a boyfriend who I think they're a very nice pair. He has a good family context in San Diego. It's where she grew up. She's a homebody. She doesn't want to leave that, but she still has this feeling like maybe she needs to go to grad school in genetics. And like, how's that work? Because that's what happens when you get
Yeah.
sucked into the
Yeah.
university context. So many currents that are pushing you away from wholesomeness that it's very difficult. And of course, like a cult, you're cut off from the context that would help you navigate that properly back, which is to say,
Right.
embodied real whole relationships. And everybody around you, all of your peers are in the same boat, right? So you have a pseudo consensus, and everybody, all the 20-year-olds who are talking to each other horizontally, because of vertical relationships, intergenerational transmission has almost been completely severed. They're conspiring to produce a pseudo consensus about what right action is, because their Overton window of right action has been delivered to all of them individually. And so they end up
Yes.
encouraging each other to get further from what is in fact right and true. So let's see. We need to blow
No.
up college. It just needs to be scraped from the surface of the earth entirely. Something like that role obviously needs to exist, but you know, that's like saying food needs to exist, but we shouldn't actually be giving people. Oh, I guess Skittles. Did you see that recent?
Right.
Yeah,
Uh,
all these cyanide is perfect. It's like, hey guys, we've gone from being just bad for you to actually including poison. Did you see this? Like the Florida state? Uh,
no, no. What is this?
yeah, the state of Florida announced yesterday that like some huge list of candies contain significant amounts of cyanide,
Oh my
or
gosh.
like 5, 10 times more than is sort of permissible. So well
And
into the
Skittles
spectrum
was
of
one
being
of
poison.
those?
Skittles is one, yeah, like Snickers bars, Kit Kats, like all the kind of like
Oh
Halloween
my
candies
gosh. Yeah.
uh, are in fact actually containing not just
Poison.
sugar and processed foods, but actual like straight down the middle medieval poison. Um,
Oh gosh.
they should do hemlock to be maximally ironic. Um, so we can pick off buckets. Right? One is the global job market, right? It's things that evaporate people from their embodied context,
Yeah.
particularly young people.
Yeah.
Bad, need to be torn up by the roots and replaced with something that orients people towards wholesome vocation in service to their church and their community.
Agreed.
Vocation, right, is the thing that God created them for, but also oriented towards a even deeper, richer connectedness in a larger context. And then we should be clear, like this is a partisan conflict against very large structures. So I'm completely in favor of absolutely everything that just destroys public school entirely. I'm completely in favor of absolutely everything that just completely plows the university system and the college system under, like it just plows it under to the point where we don't even notice that it's there anymore. I'm completely in favor of the absolute catastrophic dismantling of the global job market. And I don't want
Yeah.
anything to tempt my kids to go work in Chicago or New York City.
Yeah.
By the way, I'm completely in favor of anything that completely destroys the fabric of the large urban environments, like roving bands of cannibals and periodic explosions in New York City would be the best possible result. Um, because all those
Uh,
things are really bad and really hard to fight against. So you have to actually fight them all the way down. Like it's really significant. But of course, the flip side is even more important, which is the actual creation of extremely rich, wholesome, stable, liturgical contexts that replace all of the things that are wrong. So
yes, that is the problem. That is the challenge.
if you take away the Skittles, but you do not replace with blueberries that are grown in your neighbor's garden, then you haven't done anything. You've actually just starved
Yeah.
to death.
Yeah.
At least Skittles will keep you alive for a little while. So there's
Or
that.
you could go farther and you could say, like we've had kids who have come to our surf camp whose diet, their parents will even tell us like in an email before they come, like, hey, he pretty much only eats goldfish and Pop Tarts. And so then, when he comes, it's like, okay, like my wife will actually feel like a little mission. Like, what if we could get him to eat like just a little something? But if you actually just were like, no, you're eating broccoli, he would probably die. He'd just literally like throw up his whole, like if you moved from that diet to the to a good diet,
Yeah.
it would be like, it would be too much. It would be like the withdrawal symptoms
Oh my
or
god.
whatever. It would just your body would reject it, and so it does have to be some sort of incrementalization
Yeah.
of health, I
Yeah,
guess.
we have to move things in a pace that can actually be, a suffering that can be properly endured, which is, the God's
Right.
but one of the things we talked about actually at house church last night was, um, the phrase it's funny because this term from the point of view of modernity feels brutal, which is that you deserve your suffering. Why are you suffering? You're suffering because you deserve it. You're like, "That sounds really shitty." Like, "Man, what did I do to deserve?" But the problem is you don't actually even understand what the word deserve means. And the word deserve means merit, to have earned
Yes.
properly.
That's right.
And
He
why are you
disciplines
suffering?
those he loves.
He disciplines those he loves. You're like, "Holy shit." Like, that's
Yeah.
mind blowing. Like, I
Yeah.
am suffering because I have actually stepped enough into health that he is giving me more healing so that I
Exactly.
can be closer to him. And by the way, more able to be of service. Um, and so the problem is like your Pop Tart eater, we're so far from health that the amount of suffering we must undergo, right? Suffering just means undergo. The amount of
Yeah.
undergoing to get to health is going to be a lot.
Yes.
And we
Yes.
can only move at this pace we can move, right? If something breaks, like you said, if he just dies of starvation or ulcerated esophagus from throwing up broccoli, then
Right.
you haven't done anything right.
Right.
Um,
Right.
but it's crazy, like when you bring up the status of these kids, like I'm shocked oftentimes when I speak with families now, or usually mothers outside of the context of my community and my church who
Yeah.
may actually live in this environment. I just don't see them very
Yeah.
much. And I hear the stories of like where kids are these days. Like they're
Yeah.
fucked up. Like it's
Yeah.
crazy. Um, Psychologically, physically, socially, like it's at a level where your average pioneer would not even be able to recognize what's going on. Like
Right.
somebody who was suffering from dysentery and tuberculosis and was going to die in 10 years would be meaningfully healthier than the average 25-year-old now. Uh,
Right.
is brutal. Okay, well, again, this is because we are actually at the end of something that must
We're
end.
at the end of
We're
something.
in a
Yeah.
crisis,
Yeah.
and so
Yeah.
we have to. That's an address. Like, okay, let's deal with food. Let's deal with how do we make food that. I don't know if you looked at the soil issue, but the soil issue is a crisis of tremendous. So, how do we make food that is going to actually be able to continue to be made for several generations in the context
Yes.
of water? Right, water's in a crisis in the context of pesticides and in the context of pests, like all that. The beautiful thing, of course, is that we're not reinventing the wheel. There are good people that God has put in place who've been doing this work now for several generations. And we
Yes.
merely need to be able to identify, discern, and then upregulate, discern and upregulate what is more towards rightness and give more attention and energy towards rightness, and what is more towards wrongness and give less towards wrongness, and just continue doing that over and over and over again, recognizing, of course, that I will be eating something that is bad for me today, for sure.
Yeah.
Hopefully, I will be doing a less bad job, and over time, make
Yeah.
more good.
Incremental.
Yeah.
Exactly.